Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Able Voices podcast. I'm Dr. Rhoda Bernard, founding managing director of the Berklee Institute for Arts Education and Special Needs, and I am proud to present this podcast featuring disabled artists and arts educators. We are inviting artists with disabilities to be guest hosts for the Able Voices podcast. The guest host for today's episode is internationally celebrated mezzo-soprano Sophia Grech. Hailed by the Sunday Times as a singer who delivers without effort, Sophia has won great acclaim and notoriety for her performances at leading concert halls, opera houses, and international festivals worldwide, leading to regular invitations to give masterclasses around the world. In 2015, Sophia was diagnosed with autism, and she is now a leading ambassador on behalf of autism organizations. Her book, titled I Wish I Could Sing, was published in 2020. I hope you enjoy this episode, hosted by Sophia Grech.
I'm delighted to be hosting today's Able Voices podcast, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce my guest, Tony Rudd. Tony is a British actor, comedian, and impressionist who has enjoyed a successful career for over 25 years on television, radio, and London's prestigious West End. He is also the manager of Vibe Radio in the UK, which is a radio station for disabled students of all ages. Tony was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder late in life at the age of 55. Welcome, Tony. We're delighted that you could join us today for this Able Voices podcast. I'd like to start off by asking you to tell us your story as a performing artist. How did you start your career as a performer, and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, hi, Sophia.
Hi.
How are you doing? Yes, brilliant. Very, very well introduced. That was as well. Very good. You know, was that your posh voice? Yeah. Right. Sorry. I digress. Yeah. When I started off doing impressions in the class with the school, and the teacher would obviously sometimes he would leave the room. So I would sort of take over the class I'd get the cane and I hold it up and I start picking out the periodic table, doing lots of impressions of teachers doing that. I used to do impressions of the PE teacher, the way he would sort of grab his hair and throw it back like that. And then he'd say, you know, and he'd say things like, we've all got our neurosis, haven't we, Rudd? All got our neurosis. And he'd chuck his hair back and things like that. And I did pantomime in the Isle of Man, which is where I was born, and that's where I was educated. And my chemistry teacher came in to see the panto, and this would be about 20 years after I left school, and I did my party piece of reciting the periodic table when he came in. Yes, hydrogen, helium, lithium. So I was effectively doing an impression of him, sort of thing. Yeah.
Did you get told off?
Well, when he come to see me backstage at the panto.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He kind of said, you weren't any good at chemistry anyway, but I knew I was because I was the best at chemistry. Which was part of my it was one of my autistic special interests: chemistry, physics. Loved them, that sort of thing. But then at the age of 18, I had a party and somebody gave me a microphone to thank everybody, and I just had such a ball taking the mickey out of everybody and doing impressions of people. And I thought, oh, this is a good idea. So I started DJing, and then I started getting into stand-up comedy. Then people said, oh, why don't you try panto? So I did panto. So I've done lots of stuff, like I've done the cruise ships and comedy clubs, and I've worked at the O2 Arena. I've done Britain's Got Talent, which meant I could do the Palladium and the Apollo, and these are great things that I'm so privileged that I've been able to do, because I once started tormenting teachers with impressions.
I think that's fantastic. It's amazing that you perform actually everything from acting, stand-up comedy, impressions, and voiceover work. What's your favourite to perform?
My favourite, I love pantomime. Pantomime is there's a discipline to panto that once you've learnt, then you can go out there and break the rules. Once you learn the rules, then you can go out there and break the rules. And the character I normally play Buttons or Smee. or the silly character that gets involved with the audience, and I just love that. That's an amazing thing. And also, I love working out different clever ways of crowbarring the impressions in and stuff like that.
Yes.
I mean, I can't
Yes.
wait for this year because I've got Boris Johnson. We have Boris Johnson and his parties. So yes, I welcome to my biggest wine and cheese party. This is amazing. Fwa! So I was doing
Oh,
all
that's
that as well.
remarkable that you're able to do that. Absolutely remarkable.
Yeah.
Amazing. Now, next, I'd really like you to tell us about your experiences as a person living with autism and what impact it's had on you, having been diagnosed later in life. I mean, how have you managed this and how has it impacted on your career?
Well, it's been a strange thing because I've always known, and often because the kids at school pointed it out. You're a bit different from us, aren't you, Tone? Sort of thing. And because I could do the impressions, I think that was a way of hurdling. That's what hurdled over the sort of like gaps, because you just I'd normally just sit and read a science book, and I think a lot of autistics sort of go along those lines. But when I
Yes.
started doing the impressions, that people said to me, they said, "Oh, what did you watch on the telly?" And I said, "I watched the Mike Yarwood show." And this is how far back I go. And then I'd say, he did all these impressions. He did Robin Day, and he goes, "Good evening, but I'll soon put a stop to that." And the kids are laughing at me because I remember, I remember the whole script of the show, which is probably another
Yes.
autistic trait. And
Hmm.
B, they're all giggling at all this stuff. I'm thinking, if I act the fool, I get on with people. I don't have to be the guy sitting in the corner with organic chemistry for beginners, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. And so that's how it started. Then as I got older, I realized there were certain people I got on well with when I'm on tour somewhere, certain people, and sometimes people don't get you. And I thought, what is it about me? And I looked into it, and along comes the diagnosis a little bit later in life. Yeah.
Hmm.
But lots of things happened.
Can I ask you what made you decide to get diagnosed?
Well, I started work. I started work as a radio engineer. Kind of radio engineer, sort of. I'm basically, it's me that does it. I run the whole radio station, so I teach the kids how to do voiceovers, and I teach them stuff. And I'm starting to recognise traits in some of the autistic kids that I teach how to do radio. I think I have meltdowns like that, and I don't understand a joke in the same way that autistic child didn't understand a joke. And some people may look at me and think that I'm odd, but the great thing about it is it makes you think differently, makes you think creatively, and that's not a bad thing. You think out of the box. And I always say that the bloke who bashed the flint together to create fire was thinking out of the box, and I reckon he was autistic. And so
Yeah,
bloke who
absolutely.
invented the wheel, I think he's autistic.
Yes.
Einstein was autistic. Robin Williams, my favorite actor,
Yeah.
they reckon he had Asperger's as well. So it's things like that sort of like make me think, well, if it's okay for these people to be different,
Mm.
it's okay, it's fine for me to be different,
Yes.
and it's fine for anybody on the spectrum to be different.
Yes. Well, did it come as a surprise to you when you were diagnosed, or were you almost expecting that that's what it would be?
I spoke to a friend of mine at work, and I said, I think I'm Aspergic, and he says, "Oh, you are definitely." So that encouraged me to go to the doctor, and then the doctor started the wheels in motion. And I just found that being diagnosed was, it kind of like put everything, it put all the anxieties about the dentist, anxieties about heights, anxieties about not being on time somewhere. It
Yes.
was now under one umbrella.
Mm.
All this, you know, you worry about stuff which causes anxiety, and that's because you've got a condition. And
Yes.
that was very helpful to me.
Yes. Yes. Do you wish that you'd been diagnosed when you were younger?
I don't know. I don't know. I've been suggesting to teachers I work with who believe they've got autistic children, and they're saying, we've got a diagnosis for our autistic children, but they don't want to know. And I'm thinking maybe as you get older, you can handle a bit more. You've got a bit more maturity to think, yeah, I'm not worried about being different anymore, which is the case with me. I knew I was different. There was no hope for me, but it was nice to know why. And that's where I came up with.
Yes, because do you feel that maybe as a child you were probably a bit misunderstood?
Very. Oh, absolutely. I walked to school. I used to go. All the other kids used to play football. I used to go off fossil hunting.
Ah,
So that's how different I was, this is the years before I discovered I could do mimicry,
mm,
and I put the mimicry down to the fact that I'm different. I'll watch something, and I start mimicking,
yes.
and I see these guys. I see these autistic guys on YouTube. They don't converse,
Mm.
but if they look at YouTube, they start going tipping point, things like that.
Yes. Absolutely.
And I think that's me. I do that. I'll watch Only Fools and Horses and go, yes, here there's wings, Rodney, here there's wings.
Yes.
And the only difference is that I'm sort of savvy enough to know, oh, blimey, I could earn a bit of a living doing this.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, but you
yeah.
have such a talent for being able to do that, because I think it's extremely difficult to do impressions.
I think so. I think when you, like you say, if you've got that kind of focus, which is that sort of focus, which I imagine that you might have in your singing,
Mm,
you just totally focus on it,
yes.
and that's it. It's like nothing else is inside your brain.
Oh, it's very typical for an autistic person, actually, isn't it, that we do that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
become very
think that's
focused.
when you start listening to how voices come out, and I suppose it's like a musician learning to use, with the same focus. It's like me, I'll learn to do voices, like Donald Trump and things like that. Yeah.
Also, I know that our listeners would really like to hear about any performing arts training that you received. Can you explain how you managed to learn scripts for your different disciplines and how you continue to learn them today?
Yes, scripts. I've not had any formal training. I did a Stanislavski course, which was a 10-week course at a school in London.
Oh, really? What do they do? What's that?
It's Stanislavski. It teaches you the disciplines of acting, like
Ah,
the way to think. So if you're going to be acting,
mm,
you've got to ask yourself questions like, where am I? Who am I?
right.
What is my intention? What do I
Mm-hmm.
want?
Mm-hmm.
What do I do?
Yes.
And when you look at a script, and then you think, right, if you could read it and it's flat, then you think, who am I? So you ask the question, who am I? I'm a bloke. I work in a pit
Mm,
in a northern mine. So therefore, I've got a northern accent now.
yes.
This is what I talk like.
Yeah.
And I work down pit, so I'm probably quite gruff,
Mm,
quite a sort of like this kind of lad.
yes.
So what do I want? I tell you what I want. I want this to stop. I want us to stop striking so I can get back to work. And once you start doing all those disciplines,
Mm,
then you learn all what the character wants.
yes.
And it's the same. It's the same with learning, say, Boris Johnson as an impression.
Yeah.
You start off who is he? So he's the prime minister. So he's quite very well educated. So he's got a very well educated but very bumbly voice. He's not sure exactly what he wants. So he kind of bumbles and I don't know. And he says and what and oh, I just don't understand what's going on. And that's the same sort of thing applies to the impressions.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing. I feel like I'm speaking to Boris Johnson now. And how do you actually learn the scripts, for your pantomimes or drama shows? How do you learn those scripts? Obviously, it's got to be from memory, hasn't it?
Yeah, and autistic traits. Probably a lot of us have got very good memories,
Yes.
and I have a very good memory. But the trouble is with my memory is that I could memorize. It's almost like a photograph. I don't know if it's photographic memory. It sounds quite quite bizarre to say you got that. But I can learn that. But the thing is with a script, with a panto script, is that learning it per se, then all of a sudden you go to rehearsals and then you've got other people saying lines different from how you expect.
Oh.
And so and then they'll say, right, we want you to walk on from this, say. So you've got to walk when you're saying a line. So all these ingredients come in, and it's like juggling. So you've learnt the script, then you learn to do the script with the other people, then you learn to do the script with the with the props and movements. Then you start feeling it. Then you start doing it with the clothes. Then you start doing it on the actual theatre stage. Every step is different, and you have to prepare for that. And I with learning scripts, I tend to learn it over and over. Sometimes I actually record myself, and when I'm in the car, I'll play it back so I can hear myself talking. But then I have to do a new recording saying, "Oh, I was rubbish then." So record it another load like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. I also was wondering, I know that you're currently the manager of Vibe Radio. Can you explain more about this work and describe your teaching there and what it's like for you?
Oh, it's just fantastic. It's a radio station for disabled people, disabled students in a school. And basically, the guys come in, and everyone's got different skill sets. So some of the guys can't speak, but they can push volumes, they can push sliders up, and they can push buttons to play songs, and they can use their communicators. So they can type something out in their communicator, put that out there. There are some guys that are really good at talking, very articulate, very intelligent, very knowledgeable, but they can't do any of that. So they'll come in, they start talking. I'll do all the tech stuff. They do all the chatting. They get me involved from time to time. I teach them all how to do voiceovers. I teach them how to do podcasts, and a lot of the time, it's very good because then they learn how to include each other. They learn how to speak. They learn anything they've learnt. They learned about 6 of Henry VIII's wives and how many of them had their head chopped off, and then they make sound effects. They make sound effects for head chopped off. Get a lettuce out. That's that type of thing.
I can imagine they absolutely love that. What's the age group?
Oh, it goes from all sorts of ages. We've got from the radio station, I'd say we've got some 4-year-olds that come in from time to time. The main age group is probably the 11 to 12s, and then we've got a few of the older ones as well. We've got some that go up to 19. We've got a few of them, and they're very good. They're very good at making stuff. We had one lad who's just left the school now, but he would take his experiences of having muscular dystrophy and turn it into a positive thing, saying, I am here. I've turned my life around. I was depressed about my condition, and I think that by talking to me and listening to what I have to say, you can improve your position. You know, whatever's happening in your life, just listen to me, and I'll teach you how to motivate yourself. And that was one of the students we had. He decided to do this show of his own. Very, very good.
That sounds like it's absolutely invaluable for them.
It is. I think it's a great commodity. Every school should have one.
Yeah.
You know, I'll just have to clone myself. I'm going to clone myself, Sophia.
Yes.
That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fantastic. Actually, brings me on to my next question in a way. What advice would you give to aspiring and existing performing artists with disabilities?
Well, the thing to remember is that it sounds like a cliche, but your disability is somebody else's ability. You know, it's also your ability as well. You can learn, like for instance, with autism and Asperger's, you can learn to focus on things to an extent that other people can't. Remember, that is a skill, and never worry that these things happen to you, and you worry that all sorts of things will happen to you in your life that you worry and have anxiety about. But there are other things that this condition makes you sharp at. So my advice is to find out what you really like, what you're really good at, and then use use everything in your head to focus on that, and you'll be surprised at what you can do. We've got people like Chris Packham, who's autistic, and he's a brilliant presenter on the TV, and he wouldn't have got there by not being able to think out of the box. Albert Einstein, he had Asperger's, able to think out of the box. So a lot of autistic people can think out of the box. There's a lot of people with cerebral palsy that can do sports, that they can do Paralympic sports. There's lots of people out there that are doing amazing things, and look to them for inspiration, because everybody is possible to do something. And it doesn't have to be the biggest thing. It just could be something that makes people around you happy.
Yes.
That you've done, you know.
Yes. I think that we do tend to focus on the negatives of a disability rather than the positives. So that's amazing,
Yeah.
amazing advice you've given there. Good, fantastic. Also, our listeners, I think, would like to hear about what you're working on today and what projects you have planned for the future.
All right. Well, my work at the school is very varied, as well as doing the the radio. Yesterday, I was dressed up as Uncle Fester for the school. The school are doing a filmed production. They're filming a production. So they asked me if I would step in as Uncle Fester in the Addams Family production that they're doing. So that's what I've been doing. I've been painting a bald head on myself, painting my face, wearing a big cassock, and then talking like this. Hello, I'm Uncle Fester. How are you today? Sort of thing. Yeah. So yeah, and me as personally, I've been writing a novel. I've written a novel called Asperger's Assemble, and it's basically what I was just saying. It's about the world. The world has been taken over by a virus. The virus doesn't affect people with Asperger's because they're wired differently. So they're the only people that can save the planet. And it's like a James Bond novel. There's lots of action, car chases, and the bad guys are coming after them and stuff like that. And it's I've literally it's just gone on this month onto Amazon. So buy it. It's Asperger's Assemble.
Oh, that's fantastic. So is writing a book something you always wanted to do?
Oh yeah, I've always had the creativity in me, and I've always written stories. That was the other thing, apart from science, that I was really good at, is writing stories at school. Loved it when they said in English, right, we want you to write a story now. I'd always do really well at that.
Yeah.
I wasn't very good at English otherwise,
How long did it take you to write?
It took about 6 months to write, and then a further 6 months I got it self-published. So it's a further 6 months to go down the self-publishing route. Ask me in a year's time what I think about that, but it's on Amazon, and I think I've sold about 100 copies.
Oh, I certainly will be buying that.
Yes, get a copy.
Absolutely, I will. Oh, well, that's brilliant, Tony. Listen, Tony, thank you so much for joining us today and giving up your time to share your inspiring journey and experiences with our listeners. We wish you continued success with your career. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. It's brilliant. Really enjoyed talking to you today. So thank you, Sophia.
Able Voices is a production of the Berklee Institute for Arts Education and Special Needs, led by me, Dr. Rhoda Bernard, the founding managing director. It is produced by Daniel Martinez del Campo. The introduction music is by Kai Levin, and our closing song is by Sebastian Batista. Kai and Sebastian are students in the arts education programs at the Berklee Institute for Arts Education and Special Needs. If you would like to learn more about our work, you can find us online at berklee.edu/BIAESN or email us at BIAESN@Berklee, that's LEE.edu.